Good evening. What we are witnessing right now in the Western Hemisphere is something the United States has spent 2 centuries trying to prevent. It's the one scenario American strategists hoped would never happen again after the Cuban Missile Crisis. And yet here we are. Russia has positioned advanced missile systems on Venezuelan soil, mobile, concealed, protected by Russian-trained units, and capable of reaching targets that lie deep inside the continental United States. And the moment US intelligence confirmed what those systems were, where they were positioned, and who was operating them, Washington moved into high alert without a second of hesitation. This crisis didn't begin with a speech. It didn't begin with a threat. It began quietly, the way these things always begin in the real world. A satellite sweep, a convoy caught in motion, a heat signature that didn't match anything Venezuela should have, a shape in the shadows of a military base that analysts in Virginia and Colorado immediately recognized as something they hoped they'd never see in this hemisphere. And when they zoomed in, everything changed. At first, American analysts saw the outlines of transporter erector launchers, TELs, vehicles used specifically to carry and fire ballistic or cruise missiles. At that moment, the alarms in the intelligence community jumped from curiosity to serious concern. But when the second pass revealed radar arrays shaped in the exact pattern of Russian mobile long-range targeting systems, concern escalated to full-scale alarm. Then the final confirmation arrived. A Russian Il-76 military transport aircraft landing in Caracas, offloading equipment covered in heat-resistant tarps, guarded by Venezuelan forces wearing Russian-style combat gear. That was it. No more doubt, no more uncertainty. Russia had delivered strategic missile systems into the Western Hemisphere. And if you analyze this through the lens of classical realism, my lens, this move makes perfect strategic sense. Great powers behave according to fear, power, and geography. The Russians have watched NATO creep steadily closer to their borders. They've watched Western weapons strike deeper into Russian-controlled territory. They've watched US policymakers talk openly about weakening Russia, and they've concluded something fundamental. If they do not respond by creating pressure in America's backyard, the United States will continue expanding its military influence in Russia's. This is how great powers think, not morally, not emotionally, but strategically. The presence of Russian missile systems in Venezuela is not a gesture, it's a message. And it's a message designed to remind Washington of something it has forgotten. The United States is not immune to strategic pressure. It is not untouchable. It is not insulated by its oceans. If Russia can position missile systems in Venezuela once, it can do it again. It can expand. It can reinforce. It can build a long-term presence in the hemisphere Washington once considered exclusively its own. Inside the Pentagon, the reaction was immediate and quiet. Air Force bases shifted to elevated readiness without public announcement. U.S. Navy vessels adjusted their patrol routes. Strategic radar systems recalibrated scans over the Caribbean. Intelligence sharing with Colombia and Brazil intensified. This wasn't a routine geopolitical development. It was a breach of the very foundation of America's grand strategy. Because make no mistake, the Monroe Doctrine is not a historical footnote. It is the core of American security policy. It states explicitly and unapologetically that no foreign military power can position offensive capabilities in the Western Hemisphere without provoking a direct response from the United States. Russia just violated that rule, and they didn't violate it softly. They violated it with systems that, if conflict ever escalated, could strike U.S. naval bases, energy hubs, and population centers in minutes. We are not talking about symbolic deployments, ceremonial advisors, or harmless exercises. We are talking about the very tools Russia uses in Ukraine to devastate hardened targets. That is what is sitting in Venezuela right now. Now let's step inside the Kremlin's mind for a moment, because understanding their thinking is essential. Russia believes it is operating defensively. Yes, defensively, because in the logic of great powers, your defensive move is always the other side's offensive move. Russia believes the United States has been encroaching on its borders for decades. The eastward expansion of NATO, U.S. missile defense systems in Poland and Romania, arms deliveries to Ukraine, intelligence support shaping battlefield outcomes. From Moscow's point of view, the United States has already surrounded Russia. So what does Russia do? It chooses the one pressure point that forces Washington to think. It brings the global confrontation close to American shores. From Russia's perspective, this isn't about attacking the United States. It's about controlling escalation. It's about deterrence. It's about signaling, if you keep tightening the noose on our borders, we will tighten the noose on yours. Now think about Venezuela. Why is Russia using this country as its platform? Because Venezuela is perfect for Moscow's intentions. It's politically isolated, economically dependent, strategically useful, and deeply hostile to Washington. The Maduro regime sees Russian missile systems as a shield, a guarantee that the U.S. cannot attempt regime change without massive consequences. This means the missile systems do two things at once. They protect Russia's interests, and they protect Maduro's survival. And that combination is what makes them extremely difficult to uproot. Now look at the geography. Venezuela's northern coast faces the Caribbean, a region where U.S. surveillance is not nearly as airtight as Americans like to believe. The terrain inland is full of mountainous regions, jungles, and low visibility valleys, perfect hiding places for mobile missile launchers and radar units. Russia is taking advantage of geography every bit as effectively as the United States uses Eastern Europe. And that makes this not just a deployment, this makes it a foothold. Now let's talk about Washington's fear, because it's very real. The United States cannot tolerate Russian missile systems in Venezuela, not morally, but strategically. The U.S. military is built on the assumption that its homeland is safe from foreign missile threats. That assumption allows the United States to project power globally because it doesn't have to concentrate forces defending its own territory. Russia is trying to change that. Even the possibility that Russia might one day station long-range systems in Venezuela creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is deadly for American war planners. When warning time shrinks from minutes to seconds, everything becomes more fragile. Every radar glitch looks more suspicious. Every unidentified Caribbean launch becomes a crisis. Every misinterpreted satellite image becomes a potential path to disaster. This is how nuclear escalation becomes possible, not because anyone plans it, but because both sides start to fear that the other side's next move might be catastrophic. And here is the most dangerous reality. Russia does not need to fire a single missile to win strategic leverage. All it needs to do is leave the missiles there. Their existence forces the United States to behave differently, more cautiously and more nervously, more reactively, exactly what Moscow wants. This is a chess match of pressure. And in this round, Russia just placed a queen deep inside America's side of the board. Washington now faces a dilemma with no clean solutions. Sanctions won't remove these systems. Diplomacy won't convince Maduro to eject Russian support. Military strikes could kill Russian personnel and trigger escalation, and ignoring the systems is impossible. They fundamentally alter U.S. strategic planning. Every option carries danger. Every option carries escalation risk. Every option pushes the United States closer to confrontation. This is how great power crises begin, not with weapons firing, but with weapons arriving. The U.S. is now on high alert because it understands this reality. Russia is not just testing American resolve, it is reshaping American vulnerability. It is creating a counter-pressure mechanism that forces Washington to think twice every time it takes action abroad. Two great powers, both convinced they are acting defensively, both convinced the other is pushing too far, both convinced that retreat equals weakness. This is the most dangerous configuration in international politics. This is the landscape of miscalculation. This is the environment in which history changes. And today it changed in Venezuela. Stay alert, because this crisis is not close to ending and it is only just beginning.